Welcome to Rambam In-Depth. Today we'll be discussing the Rambam Hilchos Gittin, Perik Zayin halachic Beis. In the middle of the halacha, the Rambam says, based on the Gemara, of course, that a Shliach acher, that a Shliach could appoint another Shliach. When a person wants to give a get to his wife, he can do it through a Shliach. He can do a condition through a Shliach as well. And many other things work through a Shliach. Shlichus Shalom kamaiseh. The Shliach of a person has the same status as the person himself. But what happens if one Shliach, for whatever reason, can't fulfill his Shlichus? So he could appoint another person to be a Shliach. So the Magen Mishnah brings from the Ramban and others that is only true by Shliach Le-Holacha, not a Shliach Le-Kabala. What is the difference of Shliach Le-Holacha? Shliach Le-Kabala. Shliach Le-Holacha is where the husband appoints a person to be his shliach to bring the get to his wife, and the Shlichus is only completed when he hands the get to the wife. At that time, she becomes divorced. But a Shliach Le-Kabala is where the wife appoints a shliach to receive the get on her behalf. As soon as that shliach receives the get, she is divorced because she represents the wife. So even though the Rambam says that a shliach can make another shliach, the Rishonim say that that's only true if it's a shliach Le-Holacha, if it's the husband shliach, but not if it's the wife shliach. What's the logic behind that? The difference is, there's a Klal, the Gemara Gittin, that Mili le Shliach, that in order to be a shliach for something, to appoint another shliach, it has to be something of substance. It can't just be words. It can't just be an instruction. You become my shliach. He has to give him something. So in a Shliach Le-Holacha, you're giving the get to the second Shliach. He has to deliver the get. But a Shliach Le-Kabala is not delivering anything, just delivering the right to be in his place. That you can't do. You can't appoint Shlichus. So the Tzemach Tzedek in his Tuvas and Ibn Ezra Chelik Beis Sin Ayin Reish Beis says that the Shliach halacha also is Mili, because in order for the Shlichus to be complete, in order for the get to be a get, it's not enough to give the get. You also have to say, this is your get. And if you don't say that, there's no gerushin. So it's Mili le-Mimseril Shliach. You can't give over something that's only words. And how does that work? How does Shliach Le-Holacha work? So the Tzemach Tzedek answers that the main shlichus of a get is the actual giving over of the get. To say harei gitach is a secondary aspect of it. What does that mean, a secondary aspect? Because there were cases where even if they didn't say harei gitach, for example, if the husband and wife to be were discussing, or the husband and wife in the case of kedushin to be, in the case of gettin, husband and wife who are husband and wife and want to have a get, if they're discussing the get, and then he gives it to her without saying harei gitach, that's a valid get. And therefore, that the amira, the words harei gitach, are not indispensable. They are only the way, this is my understanding of the Tzemach Tzedek, they're only the way to indicate that he's giving the get for the purpose of gerushin. And therefore, even if they were sukin ba'isa'inyan, they were discussing the matter of gerushin, even though he didn't say the words harei gitach, that itself tells you that the get is given for gerushin. In that case, it's the get that does everything over here. The words are not effective in themselves, and therefore it's not subject to the idea of Mili le-Mimseril Shliach.